If you're a huge read like me, which, you click the video, so you are, then it's not news to you that the isekai genre has exploded in the past decade, to the point that the industry is overpopulated with them. What was once a bit of a niche idea with actually great execution, like the Dot Hack series, has become the very definition of quantity over quality. With most modern isekai being quite literally, I used to be a skinny nerd, but now I fuck 10 equally hot girls every day. Or worse yet, having the main protagonist commit multiple acts of SA. Like, so what? The princess was mean to him. The princess was also mean to the shield hero. He still doesn't fucking sexually assault people. It's a shame, really. As someone who really likes the Doc Hack series, I know this idea can be done really well, and there are still mangaka out there making an effort to that end. So while everyone else is talking about the new genre to replace isekai, I'd like to instead highlight some isekai that are actually worth your time reading, despite the genre's less than stellar track record. Let's start with the old man isekai. Yome Nekigetsu no Isekai Konkoho. This is Takemura. He is 82 years old and the former holder of the strongest dojo. He was just diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and he has about 3 months left to live. We start the manga 1 month in, with Takemura, now in a wheelchair, sitting on top of the hospital, pondering his life. The nurse closest to him, acting almost as a granddaughter, Tanaka-san, has been looking for him, as it's time for him to get his blood drawn. Takemura was actually writing down a list of animals he wants to throw before he dies, one of them being a rhino. Having not lost his sense of humor, him and Tanaka-san laugh about the absurdity of his last wish. He suddenly starts coughing up copious amounts of blood. As Tanaka rushes to get him to a doctor, they are suddenly and randomly teleported to another world. This setup was so immediately intriguing to me, as I feel that the charm of isekais is not just the unfamiliar world, but it's who you're placing in that unfamiliar world and the reactions that arise from it. Maybe putting an otaku who's very aware of typical isekai tropes and game mechanics was interesting at first, but it's gotten old fast. Now, it is still very shonen in the way that the plot progresses, as they spawn right in front of a rhino like monster. And Takimura, remembering his bucket list, decides to yeet that bitch with one finger, killing it instantly. He levels up a few times, and this gives him his health and his strength back. They also just so happen to have spawned right when the local monster girl is being chased by another high level monster, only for Takimura to, again, destroy you in one hit. Blah blah blah. But it's through the lens of an 82-year-old geriatric whose life was about to meet its natural end as the ever cool Father Time finally caught up with him. And the manga plays with this age discrepancy perfectly, never missing a chance to interject it into his characterization. Like how he seems to be confused when the dragon newt girl Lon Nu refers to him as a goblin. Yet the much younger Tanaka clearly has at least a base understanding of high fantasy isekai tropes, as she gets upset being called a half orc, half elf. Or when they're discussing the standard isekai power systems, skills, magic, and whatnot, Takimura thinks to himself that they keep saying words he doesn't understand. They even find comedy in the scenario, as when Takimura does see an actual goblin, he is, of course, properly offended. He is fundamentally ignorant to this kind of fantasy setting, yet his actual real life skills as a master of his martial art gives him a valid reason to be OP in this kind of world. It's not just fulfilling some weird male power fantasy. Mix that with stunningly drawn action, and this manga is a great read. It also has a lot more complexity with the world building and Takemura's particular style of martial art, but I have like 3 more manga I want to talk about, so just read it for yourself. Or don't. I'm not your mom. Next, I want to talk about the cat isekai. Neko no ina isekai ne neko ga tensei shiata onashi. Here's a list of reasons this manga is good. Number 1, it has cats. Number 2, it has multiple cats. Number 3, this panel in particular. Number 4, yeah, I won't go too in length with this one because really, if you like cats, you'll love this manga. Don't get me wrong, it does have some good humor, like the panel with the Demon King I showed earlier. It's a lot more of an easygoing isekai. There's no overarching plots or epic shonen fights. It's just about cats. It's the cat isekai. Moving on. This next one is an isekai after story. It's like the story where the hero comes home and has to share his apartment with the ex-demon lord, except now in gay. Now, the story does put the hero at high school age, which is, you know, definitely a choice. Thankfully, this work is nowhere near erotic and is more of a cuddly BL. The hero acts cold at first, but is never outright disrespectful to the Demon King, who is just so goddamn pure and says the most relatable shit. I just want to hug the stupid little power bottom. As the story goes on, the hero does begin to share the affection, clearly becoming very fond of the Demon King's company. But again, the story remains very wholesome. There are just so many cute moments. Like the demon lord freaking out seeing the hero shirtless, as the hero begs him to just look, as to not make the both of them embarrassed. Or when they're about to go to the market and the hero is putting on the demon lord's scarf for him. If you like cute, pure relationships like this, then this manga is definitely up your alley. And also relatively short, so I'm not going to talk too much more, as to not spoil anything. The last manga I want to talk about today doesn't technically have the isekai tag, but I think it very much counts. Plus, it's good anyway, so who cares?
空っぽの少女と二次のかけら
Is about a little girl named Hoyoko. Her parents passed away 4 years ago. Since then, she's found herself kicked out of multiple relatives' houses and is now living with an aunt and cousin who abuse her. She has visible bandages all over her, but none of the other kids or adults seem to comment on it at all. She really believes no one would care if she was here or not. While sitting alone away from the rest of her class, she begins to see and hear a ghostly figure beckoning for her. Noticing injuries on the body of the ghost, she decides to follow it, only to see that the ghost has a very similar appearance to her. Suddenly, a gust of wind blows by, blocking her vision, and when she's able to see again, she is in a different world. She's not even there for 5 minutes before some Studio Ghibli shit takes her food and, as thanks, tries to take her soul. She is luckily saved by a person in a Shy Guy mask. The monster makes one last attack on her before it dies, and although she is okay, she does accidentally swallow the crystal that the person is calling a Lord fragment. Seeing that she upset the person that saves her, Hoyoko instinctively kneels to apologize. The person is immediately taken aback by this and tells her that's no way for a child to apologize. This person's name is Aba, and they are one of the best people in this manga, immediately taking on a caring and nurturing role for Pyoko. Which, honestly, I think they did, because otherwise this manga would be way too depressing, and it's already super depressing. I'm not going to talk too much about the abuse stuff, as it is a bit of a dark tone for this video, but also, I would really want you to read this manga yourself, if you don't read any other one I talked about today. The way this manga talks about those themes of depression and abuse is really the heart of the writing. It's one that never diminishes the physical and mental pain shit like that does to people, but it's also not just trauma for trauma's sake. It really does care about its message of rising above those negative emotions, because simply pushing people away will only make you more alone. That sometimes you just have to try and trust, even when it's scary, and open your heart little by little. It's really a beautiful manga with a fantastic story and also some really good character design. My personal favorite of those character designs being Oz, who's like if anxiety was a tumblr sexy man. Oz is a semi antagonist, but again, this story is all about overcoming those negative emotions. And Oz too does overcome his extreme anxiety. Almost no one is outright evil in this story, except maybe her aunt and her cousin. Most of the other quote unquote bad guys are just being overwhelmed by their negative emotions, unable to control them, which is something I know we can all relate to. If you're looking for a manga that's sad as shit, but also really fucking good, I can't recommend this one enough. And those are all the manga I wanted to talk about today, so I guess I'll see you when I see you. Don't forget to subscribe.